Another video here, guys and girls. Not troubled for the end of lockdown, says UK government. BBC News, UK.
It's still far too early to offer a timetable for easing the COVID restrictions. That's the warning from the Health Secretary for England, Matt Hancock, who said today that the pressure on the NHS was just too great, with the number of patients being admitted almost double the peak in April last year. And he said the success of the vaccine rollout meant that progress should not be put at risk. There is a group of Conservative MPs demanding the restrictions be relaxed and schools reopened as soon as key groups have had their vaccinations. But Public Health England warned today that death rates and hospitalisations will need to fall much further before considering a return to the old tiered system. Our political editor Laura Koonsberg reports on the latest debate about ending the lockdown.
Barely a footprint where snowballs would normally be thrown. Lockdown's most profound effect, perhaps. About 8 million of the next generation out of school. And the garden in Bromley can't fill the gap.
I've got two children, an 8-year-old girl and a 10-year-old boy, and my son's school have decided not to provide any online learning at all, and his confidence is absolutely zero. He feels like he's a failure, and when your 10-year-old is telling you that they're not good enough, they don't want to be here, that is really scary to hear. I would just ask for some idea about how we can get back to normal.
Ministers have mentioned before or after Easter, but the Prime Minister today suggested once the most vulnerable have had their jabs next month.
Before then, we'll be looking at the potential of relaxing some measures. But don't forget that this country has made huge progress in reducing infection. I don't think people want to see another big surge in infection.
You might wonder, hearing that, if the rules might be rolled back a bit next month. Well, the law says they have to be reviewed in the middle of February, but don't expect any major changes. Ministers want to be sure the cases are falling, deaths are falling, the vaccine's working, and that there aren't any new dangerous variants of the disease around. And this time they want to be confident that when they unlock, they don't later have to slam the country's doors again. Yet there are growing demands over there for at least a sketch of what the way out might look like.
People are going through a really hard time at the moment. We're all kind of grinding this lockdown out. And then people will hear this and get all sorts of perhaps even false hopes. So I don't think that lack of clarity helps. I think it's better if the government are a bit more consistent in their messages.
So would the Health Secretary be more specific today? Can you, Secretary of State, spell out how, if not when, lockdown will start to be lifted? And if you won't tell us, why not?
The pressure on the NHS remains huge, and we've got to get that case rate down. But of course I understand why the yearning people have. Everybody wants to have a timeline for that, but I think most people understand why it is difficult to put a timeline on it, because it's a matter
That's
of
the Secretary of Matt
monitoring the data
Hancock's
and the
speech.
But there are costs to the wait too. In Cheshire, Dan Wright's vehicles are parked up in the snow instead of out on the road. Self-employed, he's had to apply for benefits. Money's running tight.
All of future work's been cancelled. We have no income whatsoever. We still have yard rent to pay. We still have business loans on the vehicles. Unfortunately, without any help, we can't continue.
There are signs lockdown's starting to control the deadly disease, but the numbers and the risks are still so high. 3 weeks in, no certain end. Laura Koonsberg, BBC News, Westminster.
Parents in England will be told as soon as possible when schools can reopen. That was the Prime Minister's response, as we heard, when asked to provide more certainty for teachers, parents and pupils alike. Mr Johnson said he understood why people wanted a timetable, but he didn't want to lift restrictions while the infection rate was still very high, in his words. And he would not guarantee that schools would reopen before the Easter break in April. There's growing concern about the effect that the school closures are having, as our education editor, Bramwell Jeffries, has been finding out.
The decimal point, okay.
Schools in England are busier this lockdown. The fears about children missing out have grown.
Got 75.
But millions, like 10-year-old Katerina, are learning at home. She says her teachers help a lot, but day after day without friends is hard.
At school, they're always there,
and you can always laugh and cheer with them. You can call them and play with them online and stuff, but it's never going to be the same as in real life.
Head teachers should get 2 weeks warning of full reopening, but say they need to know more to get ready.
We need to know, are we testing? And if we are testing, who are we testing? Which tests? We need to know how many children are coming back to school. Is it all children, or is it certain year groups like exam groups? Is it going to be full-time? Is it going to be part-time? Is it going to be on a rotation? All of these things are absolutely crucial for running a school.
Today, not much more detail from the Education Secretary.
We want to see all children back into school at the very earliest moment.
The government said again today that reopening schools fully is its top priority as soon as it's safe to do so. But for millions of families, this has become one of those touchstone issues. For parents trying to get work done at home and keep an eye on their kids' schoolwork, who just want to know how much longer will they have to manage. But the political heat over schools is increasing, leading MPs calling for a clear plan.
What I'd like to understand is what are the risks to children and staff. I think the Chief Medical Officer should set out what impact has the new variant had. And if, as the Deputy Chief Medical Officer said, that it's relatively low, then surely this must be one of the conditions met in terms of children going back to school.
From this warehouse, laptops are going to schools. More than 800,000 said to be delivered so far. But being able to connect is one thing. Not everyone has a place and parental support to study.
Research from the first lockdown found that disadvantaged young people were less likely to, or likely to have fewer hours of online learning. And on average, around 73 to 75 minutes less time engaging with learning than their more affluent peers.
Katerina has parents willing and able to support her, but as long as schools are mainly closed, others may be falling even further behind. Brownman Jeffries, BBC News.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed that video, guys and girls. It was talking about schools and when they're going to be reopening. I'm sure a lot of people would like to go back to school and see their friends, and families can have a break from the children going back to school. But at the end of the day, we're still in some strange times with this lockdown. But anyway, thanks for joining this good video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and it's still very sad that the world is the way it is. Some people wish it was back to normal. I can understand that. But anyway, thank you for joining this video. See you next one. Peace.